Cool. Awesome. So, welcome and thank you for coming. Today, we're going to talk about communications in SAM and being just again towards the end of the year kind of thing. Like a lot of messaging is going out, a lot of thank yous are going out, and ways that I think SAM can help with that. Let's see, make sure I'm in here. Go ahead progress. Okay, so today we're going to hit on kind of high level templates, reports, and auto actions because they're really all going to be used in tandem together to send out messaging. So we're going to build the messages through templates, the template designer. It's generally going to be a professional message that you're sending regularly, right? So thank you notes, welcomes to the program, stage 1, 2, 3 of the program, different kinds of documentation that you might need, instructions, those kind of things that you can template. And so you don't have to copy and paste every time. And you don't necessarily need to personalize. They can be used, this templates can help you, get a really polished message out without having to rewrite time after time. In order to share the message, though, you're going to use reports for sending to many people, or auto actions can be used if you want to send to individual records, like at some point in time during something happens in your process and you need to communicate, instead of, again, kind of transitioning to your email account and finding that email and copy pasting and sending and right? Like it's quite a process to transition away. You could have a template ready to go that when a date is entered or some other event happens in the system, that SAM can populate a template for you that's ready to go to be sent out. That template can be personalized too. So the ways to share templates are through email or print. And there's really, I think what we'll talk about is 2 ways to start, because which is generally going to be your main entity or the case. And this is going to be for kind of lengthier messaging. I would say, like, if you were building a treatment plan, or I think the general welcome letters are good based off the main entity, because really just going to have kind of high level instructional information, versus sub records. You'll build templates directly off of a home study or directly off of a person in home or a background check record. If you want to notify a staff that that thing was done, that event took place, or you wanted to send an email to that family, again, that event is started, or again has completed. So I'll kind of jump into templates for you. Let me click and close all of this stuff. So I've got a couple different it's not the template that I wanted to show, but rather more like this template looks better. Maybe I was showing the other for, let me open it back up. Kind of what Template Designer is, right? So Template Designer can be found under Settings and Template Designer. And when you come into it, it's going to be a big white space. Should feel similar to Word, but it's never quite the same. Doing word processing on the computer as with a Word, like a document processing program like Word. It's a little bit different if the message is being relayed through email versus being relayed through print. I do think Template Designer is probably better for email, for sending through the computer, because it's easier to manage images and things like that get sent this way. But if you have simple documents through print, it works really well for that as well. The templates, though, when they're ready to be sent, when they're designed, they can pull in information like the family's name, specific dates, things like that. You can certainly add images and add in links to external forms. So this is a really good example of the kind of intro email to your family portal that you've been working on, right? Like getting families over to a checklist is kind of an intro to how you want to set them up for success using that system. You could have all kinds of imagery in it. And again, like this is an image. People are totally used to buttons. So I've linked a button to an image, or rather, I've linked a URL to an image. So if I were to go in and edit this template, I guess I want to show you that one step. This is the image, and I just inserted an image. I do think using appropriately sized images, so not scaling it in this processor, but using Snagit or some other tool to just resize the image. Putting a properly sized, if you double click on the image, you can, it can link. I think because this is linked, it already shows the link. If I were to click on this image, I've got image info, so I could resize it if I wanted to, or I can add a link and put in a URL here. Okay, so that's easy ways to kind of do that. I do think templates are really great for staff notifications, and they could be used more and more frequently, especially if you've got staff that don't necessarily access SAM, but they do need to know that certain components of the system are done. Something that I think is neat for staff notifications is you could certainly give them lists, right? Like reports of all the documents that are complete versus not complete, or here's all the background checks that the family needs to complete for the current state that they live in versus all of the other states that you also need to check on. I mean, I guess there's like endless kinds of ideas depending on what you want, what kind of information you want to relay to that person. What I like about these internal notifications is linking them to a specific form so that you know how to do that. That's right now is under advanced options, and it's insert form link. And from here, once you've got your cursor linked in the system, you can open that up, and then Sam will give you a list of forms that you can take this user to. I do think they have to be view forms, and they are specific to the forms that this template is built off of. Sam tells you what table, right? So if I were to step back a little bit and go back here, the different ways to start a template being either on the main entity or the case or sub records. Sam's going to tell you what that template is based off of. Okay, so you can see that right here. If you needed to add more fields or change the tables on the template, also under advanced options, there's a link called Tables on Template, and that will allow you to see what tables are selected if you're looking for different information. System wants to be real slow today, but this is specifically set up for this home study. So based off of a home study, this is probably called at some point in time. And so it needs to be very specific to the home study record that it's called from. But I am pulling information about the case. I'm pulling information about the case manager details on here.
Stephanie, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
One thing that I have found, if I do have a multi-record table on there on the template, like home study, once you do that, then you can't link back just to the family form, like the cover page. You can only link to like the home study details.
Right. I know. That's what I was kind of just saying. I know that. So the one thing that I might suggest is starting the template from the family, and any home study information, you're kind of generally things are going to be off that current home study. Or if you are directed, you can take the user a little bit more deep if you have a home study details page, right? So if I were to go to this family record over on the home study, this would be an overview, and I don't think Sam is going to let you even go to this form on the template if the template is based on the home study, but it will take you to this very specific home study, and having like a really like a detailed form about that, it will take you directly there.
Right, but what I want to do is just link to the family cover page, not link to the home study. But that's my only option once I have it
Based off the home study.
Based on the home study.
Let me actually get back. I will talk to the developer and find out if there's something that you and I are missing, right? Like, because I do think you're right, and I think Sam is limiting in that way, and then potentially give some a story to enhance the system so that there's an ability to pull that, because it seems like you should be able to go higher up the hierarchy. Right. Maybe not go down, but go up. Yeah.
The family table is on there, then.
Exactly. So let me get a little further clarification of why that's not possible right now, or if, again, like if I'm missing something for some reason and not able to share that, right?
Yep.
Because that would be real helpful. You're welcome. The other thing that I think templates are good for is just home studies. So I don't think this is taking advantage of as much as it potentially could. And I think there's honestly, the home study is a huge document, and there's so much potential for me to improve the look of this particular one. But the ability, right, like a lot of this information is generated from the application form. So if you're let's say the demographic information, the contact, who's who lives in the home, basics about the case, like you're inputting a lot of that into the system. And then my understanding is a lot of times then home study templates are done in Word. So there's a couple of options for you is to set up a template for this demographic information in SAM to get you started. So again, there is no copy pasting. And I'm curious how you guys do that today, Heather. How does your team do the home study? Does everybody do their own?
As far as the social workers?
Mm-hmm. Like when they're writing the actual home study to prepare either for a dossier or to complete for the domestic adoption, like how is each social worker writing their own home study with their own template?
They are, but we do have a consistent template from Madison.
Okay.
Yes. But now, our home study process has really changed in that since I've created the home study checklist now,
mm-hmm.
We're still trying to teach all of the social workers kind of how to use it, just to navigate around SAM, because they haven't had SAM access in the past. So things have really changed for us with the home study process, but for the better.
Oh, good. Okay, good. So would you consider, right? So today, like to pull the family's name and email, any of their contact, any of the demographic information that I think your team is using in the application form, are they inputting that on? Are they copying it from SAM, or where are they getting that information from?
Well, as soon as they're assigned the case, a lot of that information is pulled out of SAM with an auto action and sent to the social worker. So they have all of that.
So it's sent like in an email, all of that. Okay.
Yeah. Just, how many people are living in the home, the states they've resided in since they were 18, a lot of different detailed information, their address, their contact information.
So they have that information through an email and either are copy pasting that out and into a Word document template. Correct. Could you see a benefit of creating a template then in SAM that really you're training the team to go, yeah, it would help them write it. So one of the things that you can do with the system is export this to Word. So if everybody's used to using Word, you can set them up with your basic information. And again, this limits, it kind of takes away a couple of the processes that you mentioned. The email that's going out, which I don't know how much of that information really should be passed through email, to be honest. But then then they're copying it, pasting it in, or retyping it into the Word template that you guys are currently using. And this could kind of keep all of the data that's been collected about the family in SAM, and then pull it together the way that you guys like. And then also, if they're more comfortable with Word, popping it out and using Word for that. So a little bit of things kind of come off weird. I think I did not resize my template or my image properly. But if I do that, right, I get closer to what I might want it to be. I would say a couple things about this current template designer. Tables aren't super great. I'm not a big fan of the tables. And this template in particular, I could do a lot to it. It's kind of something I built a decade ago, and it's that big hairy beast that I don't want to touch, but probably should have prepped for this with this one a little bit more. But I think, again, this is something that's not quite utilized to its fullest, to like the full potential. So you could also have families entering in kind of their narratives. So this is what I think people are leaning more towards for reporting about, like post-adoption reporting. Agencies are transitioning to giving the family the narrative right through SAM, so creating public forms and they type the narrative. Families could totally enter their autobiographical information into the system, and then that is retrieved. And then again, if it's here, we can modify as needed for better, for having the social workers information relayed, right? Their summary of what they're reading from the narratives, things like that. So it is an option for you guys to consider. Decrypt encrypted fields this is something where you're going to need to put in that, whatever your agency's decryption password is, because it doesn't want to show you the social security number by default. I don't know if you noticed that or not. But it's the encrypted, right? Key doesn't tell you anything until we put in the decryption password that we're allowed to show that.
That's neat.
Okay. Let's see. So as far as sharing it, I think two ways that it can be shared is through auto actions and then through reports. So auto actions, I think, are really important when you and I think communication in general is really good at transitions, right? And so if you know your process, transitions are generally at the start and the end of the process as you're moving through to the next process. So I kind of feel like it's like walking a kid to school. You're going to tell them how that day is going to go, and it's going to go a lot better if they know what's going on rather than being surprised. I definitely know that with my kid. So basic workflow, right, is like just kind of outlining the general workflow for your families. I would do the same thing for the birth parents that you work with, or even any other resource providers that you're working with, like kind of setting out each workflow that you want to capture, and then breaking it down, right? So there's a couple different ways, and I've actually done this only for the first 3 because it started to get really lengthy with the amount of communications that I might actually want to have at these different points in time. So it honestly didn't fit on the screen. So inquiry stage kind of in my mind has 2 general components. It transitions generally when an application is received by a family. So when the inquiry is received, right, we might want to send a message to the family, and you might want to send a message, Heather, you might want a message, right, because of your role. I don't know who does it in your organization, but a lot of agencies have somebody that mans the inquiries and kind of gauges interest, right? What program are they interested in? Where are they going to go? What kind of information do I want? Maybe make a phone call, etc. And you could certainly break out each of these stages in greater detail, but I think looking at the big milestones, generally you're going to want to communicate at that point. And so I've got kind of to the side here is what kind of messaging do I want to send? I want to send an email to the family. I want to send an email to the coordinators, and I've got it separated out, color coordinated to like what's going to the family versus not. But just in this first intro step and keeping it pretty high level, I've got 12 different messages. So this is an excellent opportunity for templating, right? And just really getting them honed in, but it all is going to start with what is your process and being clear of what that is. You will use reports to send to many. So there's different types of reports that you could pull from. So if you know specifically you want to send to all donors that donated last month, you want to send a great thank you and an invite to an event coming up, you might pull a report specific to those donors. That's a subset of records. It can have more types of information other than just contact, so you know who worked that donor or what programs they've donated to before. You might have a list of all their donations, not just the last ones. It just depends on how you're going to organize that report, but that's what the opportunity is when you get really entity specific and go deeper into subrecords, you can have all of their case information on those reports. But you also might look into main entity reports, which you can find under the report menu. You can certainly add this to your homepage if it's something that you want to use, but I like to view all reports by entity type. Scroll down to the bottom, and there are these reports called all entities reports, all entities communications, and all entities documents. So this should pull basic contact information for all of the different entities in the system that you're utilizing. There is a field called entity type, so you can still filter out to specific, like I just want to pull the donors, and it would give their contact information. This is going to be better for, I want to send a program update or a program status, like the health of the organization, to really everybody but youth, maybe, right? So it's going to depend on your organization, but you have the ability to kind of plug and play with this report. The way that you'll send templates is through options. You can send a bulk email, or you might print templates. So again, depending on what you're doing, you can use those options. The other thing that I think, just because we're talking about messaging in general, is like being able to print address labels. So you could use that. Printing address labels has never, ever been easy or fun to organize, but once you've decided what your labels are, these are what you're going to use, you can start the formatting process for that. Export email addresses is also a way that you can take these emails if you really love using MailChimp or whatever, but your contact data is here. This is, if SAM is used properly, it should be really your main up-to-date contact information, and you can transfer those emails out to other program providers if you're using something different from sending. And I think that's really it for me for this talk, because I want to keep it just thinking about where communications are, and as you start ending 2019 and moving towards 2020, there's a lot of opportunities for templating messaging and going back to what's your greater process, and how do you, if you've got enough templated messages, you can start to refine the message a little easier for improvements, right? Then I think you can if it's in lots of different areas. So if you know you've started a general process and you've got certain messaging, you have this opportunity to refine, which I think is really great. And be supportive. Is there anything else that you've got, Heather?
I do just have a question not related to the webinar.
Okay.
Helpful, thank you.
You're welcome. Let me stop this then. I'm going to just end that, and